Hey, here we go. So today I want to talk about identity. Before that, a couple quick gems from some recent sobriety online meetings. Someone threw out yesterday, it's called happy hour, not happy night, certainly not happy morning. And then I even chimed in to say, yeah, it's more like happy third of an hour, as I often talk about. This for those of us with the disorder, alcohol maybe works for 20 minutes max, and then we're in buzz limbo from there. So I thought that was a good one. And then someone else threw out the term sober splaining, which I should have Googled to see. That's probably already out there on the internet, but I love it, like mansplaining. But people that think they have to explain or over-explain why they don't drink. And that leads into, this topic of identity. I love to say I finally have something to identify as, and that's as a non-drinker. I read something that says a shame-based identity is when a person's sense of self is negatively impacted by their feelings of shame. This can lead to a person believing they're inherently bad, broken, or toxic, and can affect their relationships, work, and spirituality. And that's what a lot of us go through with alcohol use disorder. We think we're broken. Something's wrong with us. Why can everyone else drink normally, but I can't? It's certainly fueled by the alcohol industry and commercials and, et cetera. And, for me, it was the realization that, I knew it was genetic in my case. Everyone, on my Irish side of the family struggles with it. And then everyone on my Italian side can take it or leave it. I realized I just process alcohol differently. I haven't used this in a little while, but I use the cilantro gene analogy. I hate cilantro. Many of us do. And used to think, how can people love this thing that tastes like soap to me? And then I learned it's a gene that literally changes the flavor to soap for some of us. So it's the same thing. With this disorder, our reward system is in our brain is just wired differently, and we process alcohol differently. And I have several prior YouTubes talking about that. But the point is, we should feel no shame. This is a chronic brain disorder, same as Alzheimer's, which nobody questions and everybody has empathy for. And it's the same thing here. And if you feel shame, you're really part of the problem, because everybody needs to understand this and not shame us and feel empathy for us and the struggle. It's not just a matter of willpower. I talk about all that again in previous stuff. But again, what I want to talk about today, I was listening to this audiobook called Level Up by Rob Dial. Really, really good. And what he talked about is, results are a reflection of your actions. So if you start taking actions that give different results, you can begin to change your identity, and in this case, to a non-drinker. Identity influences actions, which gets you results that reinforce your identity, so it's a cycle, and he talks about people think that you can't change your personality, that it's set in stone. But the word persona comes from the Greeks and used to mean a mask on stage. So wearing a mask says, I am this person. But you can take off that mask and you can change your personality. And your life won't change until you change who you think you are as that person in your mind. So, to wake up every day feeling shame and regret, which is natural as we continually let ourselves down, which is part of this disorder, until we start doing the work. So that's really what I'm talking about here, about taking necessary actions to change your identity. The most important thing you can do to accomplish a goal and the life that you want is to change your identity. People try to change your circumstances without changing your identity, and so their circumstances never change. So when your identity changes, your actions change, and when your actions change, your results change. And ultimately, this is part of, doing the work. So that is where it all begins, is first of all, to think of yourself as, I'm just a non-drinker. Yeah, it's the same thing. People with celiac, they have to go gluten-free. They just accept it. I owned a pizza shop for 5 years. Those people say, hey, do you have gluten-free pizza? Otherwise, I could die. Same thing here. It's like going to a liquor store or going to a bar and saying, do you have non-alcoholic beer? Because otherwise, you could die. It's a slower death. But many have died from this disorder, many. And I know many personally. So again, you just have to understand that and change your identity to a non-drinker. That really helped me. I was in a recovery program that talked about, the highest level you can get to is just where alcohol doesn't exist in your life. And I'm at that point now. I'm at almost 10 months. I once quit for 3.5 years. I'm on 10 months now, going to infinity. And I like to say, I'm a magician. I've just made alcohol disappear in a world where we're surrounded by it. I also use the Harry Potter analogy that we're wizards. And the commoners, those who can drink normally, they're muggles. But we are wizards. And again, we can make alcohol disappear in a world where we're surrounded by it. So that is the idea. That change your identity to a non-drinker. It just doesn't agree with you. I'm sorry to say it, but the only life sentence is that voice. But every day that you don't drink, it gets weaker, you get stronger, and it's a parasite. It shrivels up. It needs alcohol to reinvigorate. So essentially, you're in permanent remission as long as you never drink again. So that is the key. And doing the work as a non-drinker with this disorder, you just have to accept that you need to do the work, which I talk about extensively, and then your life will change, your circumstances will change, and you'll be able to start living life. All right, that's going to do it. As always, please like, share, subscribe, and remember, stronger, sober. Thanks. Okay, so a quick overtime because I was talking to a sober friend after I filmed this, and he's experiencing a lot of shame. He's adopted, and he was apologizing to his mother saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm struggling with the same disease that your father died from." And I'm saying, dude, it's not your fault. As we say in our community, the Luckiest Club, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it, and he's doing that at age 30, which is tremendous. And he asked me, he said, "How did you get over the shame of being an addict?" And I explained to him what I said towards the beginning of this video, that I never experienced that because I knew early on that in my case, and the majority of us, it is genetic. I mentioned my whole Irish side struggles with it, and the Italian side doesn't. I have 9 cousins on the Irish side. The only 2 that don't have the disorder happen to be my brother and sister, who completely take after my father's Italian side. So it's amazing. They can take it or leave it. And so I've known that. So there's no shame in being an addict. I said you're addicted to an addictive substance that you are likely genetically predisposed to become severely addicted to. It's crazy. And, one other thing as far as identity, the word alcoholic, it's funny, most of my people hate, although it's interesting. When we refer to previous generations, people say, "Oh, my father was an alcoholic, my grandfather was an alcoholic." They have no problem using that term on them, but they don't like it used on themselves. But I think rightfully so. My interpretation is that, if you know you've got the disorder but aren't doing anything about it, you're an alcoholic. If you're taking responsibility, if you're doing the work, essentially you have alcohol use disorder, but really you're sober. And I think that's a key distinction, and it's a shame, that term, anything with the ending like that, ick, and include, anorexic, bulimic, alcoholic. I wish celiac seems to sound much cooler, and I mentioned earlier, but it's the same thing. They just can't process gluten like we don't properly process alcohol. And one last thing is an analogy I haven't used. I used the cilantro one in this video. One other one I haven't used is that pot. I don't smoke it often, Mom, but when I do, I can take one hit of pot and be good for hours. Just like my father, again, recently got a Bloody Mary at breakfast, and he won't drink again for the rest of the day, which to those of us with the disorder is just like Houdini stuff. It's like, what are you going to do with that buzz for the rest of the day? For us, we would have to absolutely keep drinking on top of that. So that's it. So, your identity should not be shame-based. It should not be that of an addict. It should be just somebody. This is just one part of life. This happens to be a human affliction. That's all it is. Everybody has their thing. For us, this is it. Could be a lot worse. Not only that, in my community, we truly believe we are the luckiest. And I will be doing an upcoming video enumerating all the reasons why. Starting with that we're basically allergic to poison. Boo-hoo. All right, that'll do it. Stronger, sober. Thanks.